Take a look around you. Cobbled streets and period buildings. It feels like we've stepped back in time. But what if I was to tell you that this quiet tramway village in Derbyshire holds the key to a revolution that shaped our modern cities?
Before cars jammed our streets, trams were the cutting edge of public transport, and they helped to transform urban life across Britain.
It all started with these horse-drawn trams. They first arrived in the 1800s, and for just a penny you could ride in relative comfort and speed, just as long as the horse didn't get tired.
They might look pretty basic to us today, but they were revolutionary for their time. They ran on metal tracks, so the ride was relatively smooth, and the fares were pretty cheap, meaning that more people could afford to travel.
And because they could carry more people, they helped the cities grow outwards, creating the first suburbs. People could now access jobs and markets further away from home.
But relying on horses wasn't exactly ideal. You had to house them, feed them. They didn't exactly keep the streets clean. Horse-drawn trams definitely came with a pretty big clean-up bill.
So when electricity became a viable power source in the 1800s, cities jumped at the chance to ditch the horses.
The first electric tram was introduced in Germany in 1881, and soon cities across Europe and the US were electrifying their networks. Electric trams were faster, more reliable, and didn't leave a mess behind.
By the 1890s, Britain was fully on board. Cities like London, Glasgow, Manchester installed overhead tram systems, and suddenly you could go further and faster than ever before.
Electric trams didn't just change cities, they transformed daily life for people. They made it easier for workers to commute, they gave people access to the entertainment districts, and they even shaped tourism, letting people visit the coastal towns like Blackpool.
And while they were practical, they were also cutting-edge technology. These trams ran on overhead electric wires, which for the time was a pretty futuristic concept.
By the early 20th century, Britain had one of the most extensive tram networks in the world, with over 20,000 trams running across nearly 400 towns and cities.
Trams didn't just serve cities, they shaped them. Streets widened, businesses thrived along the tram routes, and new neighbourhoods popped up around the tracks. By the early 1900s, tram design started to evolve rapidly. Early electric trams were pretty basic, open sides, wooden seats, but as technology improved, so did the comfort.
Trams in the 1920s and 30s started to look more like the ones that we would recognise today. They had fully enclosed cabins to keep out the weather. Some had electric heaters, and some even had upholstered seats. Not these ones that we're sitting on.
By the mid-20th century, they became sleeker and faster. This wasn't just public transport, it was efficient, reliable, and a rather comfortable way to travel. Pretty good fun this, isn't it?
Absolutely love it, yeah.
But it wasn't just about practicality. Trams had become part of a city's identity, from the bright yellow trams of Lisbon to the iconic red and cream trams of Glasgow.
Trams were a symbol of progress, right up until the mid-20th century, when everything changed.
After World War II, cars became more affordable and trams started to be seen as outdated. Over the next few decades, the tram network slowly disappeared.
Thankfully, people saw value in saving these pieces of history, and that's how Crich Tramway Village was born.
Not only can you ride on the trams here like you could a century ago, you can have a pint in the Victorian pub like you could a century ago.
Incidentally, this pub, or everything within the Crich Heritage Museum, it's all come from somewhere else. Everything has been, like this pub for instance, originally was in Stoke-on-Trent. It's been brought back here to Crich in Derbyshire, lovely and restored, brick by brick, and now it's a fully running open pub again. Thanks so much, Red Lion. All the buildings around us have come from somewhere, like the old Derby Assembly Rooms, they're here. It's not just about trams, it's, which there's a lot of trams, isn't there?
Yeah, I didn't actually realise that was the old assembly room, so that's been preserved as well because
Absolutely.
It's now here. That's
all the
fantastic.
buildings, all the bridges, everything that you see at the Crich Tramway Museum has been donated, everything's original, it's come from somewhere else, safe from the scrapyard for all visitors to enjoy.
Since then, the volunteers and engineers have worked tirelessly to restore these trams, but not just to look good, to run on the tracks like they did a century ago.